Hi, I'm Jen Melanson. I'm the Community Services Coordinator for the town of Chelmsford, and I'm here this morning with Christine Berthold from Fresh Start Food Gardens. Christine is the owner of Fresh Start Food Gardens, and she is responsible for the building and installation of our Gardens for Good here in the back parking lot of the Chelmsford town offices. So Christine is going to be giving us a little educational seminar this morning and we'll answer some probably very common questions that folks may have about backyard gardening and organic gardening and raised bed gardening. We've been working with Christine for 2 years now. We initially started with 6 raised bed garden beds back here last year, and then we expanded this year, and I think we have a total of 14 beds now. And despite the dismal growing season that we've had, and we're getting some rain right now, which is pretty on par for this year, we've been producing a good amount of produce that has been going out with Table of Plenty on Tuesdays and been going to our senior housing folks on Thursdays. So I'll turn it over to Christine now, and hope you enjoy the program. Thanks.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I'm Christine from Fresh Start Food Gardens. We help people with their backyard gardens. We install raised bed gardens. We help people maintain them, and then we provide garden education to anyone who wants to learn how to grow their own food.
And do you have a website or something?
We do have a website, freshstartfoodgardens.com.
Good.
Exactly.
Good. Okay.
So we're based in Westford. We have hundreds of gardens all over Lowell, Chelmsford, Acton, Nashua, Westford, Littleton, Groton, Tingsboro, kind of the whole area. And we help people who want to have a garden but are just a little bit too busy to take care of it all season. So that's what we're here for.
Oh, okay, good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I really like what you've got here.
So these are Patio Peppers and a variety of different cherry tomatoes that I picked this morning. You can try them if you like.
Oh, okay, I'm going to try this one right here.
So this is
I really like
sweet.
peppers.
They look like they're hot peppers, but these are sweet red peppers. Isn't that good? Those are so
Very
good.
nice. Yep.
So these have done remarkably well this year, given the fact that we've had so little sunshine and heat. It's been a tough year for gardening. Certainly,
Does too much water hurt these?
too much water will stress a plant, right? Too much water will stress a plant in the same way that too much heat and no water will stress a plant.
I found that
We've had
out the
both
hard
this
way,
year.
but now I live in a condo,
Okay,
so I have to grow tomatoes in a pot.
right? Container gardening.
Right, and
Yep.
I'm the classic overwaterer. You know, if a quart is good, a gallon must be better.
I think a lot of people fall into that trap. A lot of people do. The other thing that people often do is they water the foliage. So they take their watering can and they come up here and they water their plant like
Right,
this,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the only thing
You've
that
been watching me on my patio?
I've been beating the bushes.
Yeah.
So the only thing that really does for your plant is invites disease. The number one thing about all plants universally is never ever water the leaves. Never ever water the leaves. I'll say that one more time. Never ever water the leaves. So in a plant, roots are the part of the plant that collect the water, right? So the only part that is worth watering is the soil around the plant. It drips into the soil, collects the nutrients, and then comes up through the plant, right?
Yep.
So when you water the leaves, that's when you're inviting disease. Always, always water the roots rather than the leaves, okay?
Yep.
You certainly can't help that in a year like this year when we've had so much rain.
Right.
Now, worse than having a lot of rain is having a lot of rain at night. And so we kind of had a perfect storm, right, this year. So we had rain many, many days during July, but it also rained at night. The reason you want to water your garden like around 6 o'clock at night is so that it has time to dry before nightfall. You really don't want wet leaves sitting all night in the dark.
So if you're watering the roots, it's better off with a handheld hose down low. What if you use like a lawn sprinkler?
Right. Then you can't help but to
help.
water the leaves.
But
You
that's
can't-
not what you should do.
So here's the thing about the lawn sprinklers. You know, we have a lot of clients who have a lawn irrigation system, and that's how they water their garden, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Except it's going to put a little more stress on the plants because you're getting all that water on your leaves. Okay, but if it means the convenience of having a lawn system is going to mean having a garden or not having a garden,
Yeah.
I'd rather they have a garden and water with the lawn system.
So I mean, how detrimental is that? I mean, you run the risk of wiping your whole garden out if you water the leaves with
No.
a sprinkler?
No, obviously it's been raining for centuries, right? And that's how we've irrigated our agriculture for years. But it doesn't help.
No.
It doesn't help.
All right.
So it's just one more thing that can add stress to a plant. So a stressed plant is one that is overcoming different adversities throughout the season. And so water on the leaves would be one thing that would stress a plant out. A lot of heat, a lot of rain, cold weather, unexpectedly, all these things just make it harder for the plant to thrive. So here's an example of some stress here. So this is actually a fungal disease on our plants. This is called Anthrinos, okay? And what that is it's a fungal disease that is attacking this plant. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove these leaves, okay, that are affected. And you've seen we've taken some of these off before, right?
So
And the
that's
reason,
something I've done right.
yes,
I have,
yes, absolutely.
I see bad leaves, I take them off.
Exactly, that's exactly right. So couple things to know. If you came out and your entire bed overnight was affected, you can't take off all the leaves because the leaf, again, the function of the leaf is to collect sunlight and to turn that into food for the plant, right? The function of the roots is to collect water and nutrients. So a really good rule of thumb is you would never want to take more than like 20% of the leaves off at any given time, right? Again, that would provide stress to the plant, right? To lose that much foliage. So you don't want to do that. Now, there is a good organic treatment for this type of disease, right? You're going to see this on your cucumbers. You're going to see it on your beans. You might see it on your tomatoes, and you might see it on corn, okay? A really good organic treatment for this is blue copper soap, okay? So this is copper soap with water. We use a lot of this, so I've got a sprayer here, and you would just spray it on here. So it's bright blue, it's copper soap, right? And this is going to help fight that disease. So anytime you spray, you want to make sure you get the bottoms of the leaves and the stems. Okay, now I said never wet the leaves, but in this case we're adding medicine to it, right?
Right.
So we're gonna make sure that it really gets in there. So we're going to take off the leaves that are affected and then spray down the rest to make sure that it doesn't spread. Okay?
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
All right. So that's a pretty popular fungal disease this time of year. So you're gonna see this on your cucumbers. And at this time of year, you often see your cucumbers really just shriveling up and dying. So that's either this or it's just a general bacterial wilt. This is caused by a fungus. Bacterial wilt is really caused by cucumber beetles. So you'd want to address that insect problem.
Yes, my garden is primarily in the South Chelmsford Community Gardens. We have a lot of growers there, and they grow every imaginable vegetable there, but also we have every imaginable bug that we have. For instance, we had to stop growing potatoes because the potato beetle was clearing out the potatoes as well as the eggplant. And so we're constantly trying to battle those things.
Yeah.
I ended up having the cucumber beetle as a problem, so I grow that at home. So I was wondering what you can do in those kinds of circumstances.
Yeah.
We've even gone to row covers to try to prevent the plants from getting attacked early on.
Yeah.
And then once we pull the row covers off, the bugs are at it again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So fantastic. So great question. So number one, row cover is a great organic, preventative type of technique. Row cover is a very, very thin agricultural fabric that you put over your plants. So what that will do is it keeps the bugs from coming in. The problem is they need to be pollinated, and it also takes out, keeps out the beneficial insects too. So you can't leave it on all season. There are some things that you can do that are natural. Some of the things we would do are companion planting, right? So companion planting means, and we've done it here with our squash here. So you can see we've got some nasturtiums growing here next to our squash, okay? Now nasturtium is a kind of flower. It's actually an edible flower, and it will attract some of the insects away from the plant. So squash bugs, nasturtium will help with squash bugs, okay? So some very, very popular and beautiful companion plantings are nasturtiums, calendula, and marigolds. A plant can be a good companion for a number of reasons. Like sometimes it attracts beneficial insects. So marigolds, for instance, would attract bees and other pollinators to tomatoes, right? So perfect to do near tomatoes, anything that is flowering. Calendula is great for potato beetles.
I have a follow-up question
Sure.
about that.
Yeah.
You just mentioned potato beetles. Can you use row covers over your potato plants until they get huge and then take them off, or do they need to be pollinated by bees?
Yeah, so I've experimented with that this year, and we didn't get enough sunlight. So it is transmissible. There are different weights of row cover, but I think you have to look out for that.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they're getting enough air and sunlight.
You have a small space like at home, and you're only getting partial sun, so you're using the best spot possible. Can you grow potatoes there? I was thinking that I'm worried about whether they will be pollinated or not.
So a lot of people have this concern about not having a lot of sunshine in their yard, right? That situation really lends itself well to raised bed gardening. Raised bed gardening is building a lumber or perhaps metal structure, and then filling it with customized soil, like soil that we create on our own, so it's really the ideal blend, right? There's lots and lots of benefits to raised bed gardening in New England. One of them is that it heats up a lot faster than in the ground, so you can start planting a lot earlier than you could if you were planting in the ground, right? If you don't have a lot of space, it's ideal because you walk around the outside of the garden. I don't care how much sun there is here. I only care how much sun there is here. So I'm maximizing this space so that everything is growing here, and it makes a really efficient space when you don't have a lot of sunlight. It's kind of ironic because people often have very large yards, and yet because of having tall trees or whatever, they don't have a lot of sunlight. So it's a good solution for that. So we did talk about powdery mildew. So this is something that happens with a lot of humidity, a lot of rain, right? And that's what this looks like. So this is kind of like a whitish, it looks like powdered sugar that's kind of speckled on a plant, right? That's called powdery mildew. That is something that we treat regularly. So this is baking soda and water. And you just want to, first of all, I would remove the leaves that are really heavily affected. But if I were going to, the ones that I would leave, I would definitely spray the bottom and all the way down the stem and all the way up the top. So baking soda makes your plant more alkaline, right? And so it raises the pH and it makes it a poor host for bacteria to grow. So baking soda is a terrific natural preventative way to care for your plants. You may also notice here that we've got tin foil wrapped around the base of our zucchini and our squash plants. Do you know why we do that?
Probably to keep the squash bugs away.
Cutworm?
So interestingly enough, so cutworms are very early in the season. What we try to do is we hold off on planting until cutworms are no longer a problem. A lot of people will plant seeds and they'll put like tissue paper, like wrap, like rolls around the base.
I used to use
or
cups.
a cup or a cup. I tend to baby the seedlings longer in the greenhouse and then put them in after the cutworms are a problem. So you can sort of forestall that problem by not planting too early.
Now, when is that? Is there a time of year, or the stalks get so big that the cutworms can't get at them?
Exactly, that's exactly it, Bob. So you want to get it to a point that it's too big for the cutworm to wrap itself around.
Okay.
The way the cutworm kills the plant is by wrapping itself around the stem and then killing the plant. This is actually for vine borers. So vine borers are an insect that attack the base of the plant. They literally bore into the stem and then they eat their way up through the plant. So if you were to come out and see your zucchini or your squash plants just not thriving, if they just look sad and wilted and just unhealthy, chances are you've got a vine borer. And the way you would know that is on the stem here, like on the stem, you would see something that looks like wet sawdust, right? And that's the sign that something is born in there. What we do is we wrap tinfoil around the base so that it makes a physical barrier so that the vine borers have no way to get in there, right? Because it's really depressing to have a totally healthy plant, you come out the next day and it's dead, right? The good news is if you do get a vine borer in there, what you do is you make a slit with a knife and you actually can go in and get him. You can go in and get the vine borer out. You kind of surgically remove it with the knife. You wrap the stem.
Is there usually one or the whole family in there?
You know what? There's usually one, but I've seen more than one. So there's usually just one, but you can keep looking. And you can tell they're really fat because they've eaten their way like up the stem. If you can just make a small slit and then cover it back up, you can save your plant. So tomatoes are the heart and soul of the home garden, right? Would you like some?
The queens of the garden.
The queens of the garden,
I love
sure.
tomatoes.
Yes, they're beautiful.
BLTs, that's all we have.
Oh, so good, so good. So what variety do you grow for BLTs?
Unfortunately, I moved to a condo,
Okay.
so I don't grow.
Okay.
I support the local economy.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of good varieties for BLTs. What do you think, John? Do you have a favorite?
Well, I primarily have been growing Amish paste, which is a paste tomato, but it also tastes just like regular tomatoes, in sandwiches.
Yeah.
But I mean, my fellow gardeners are doing everything.
Yeah.
All kinds of.
Yeah. It's fun. That's one of the benefits of a community garden. You get lots and lots of different varieties to try. So it's been a tough year for tomatoes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's been a tough year. But we were redeemed with some warmth and sunshine in August after a very, very rainy July. But that helped. That certainly helped. So we've just picked a ton of tomatoes here. The reason we picked these is because it rained. Yeah. And so generally, if you have a choice, you want to pick your tomatoes before it rains. Rain is what causes them to split. So I'll give you an example here of that. Okay, so this split just as we were picking it, right? It didn't split on the vine, but it split as we were picking it. Generally, if a fruit is split on the vine, you'd want to think twice about eating it, because it means that insects or other disease could have gotten into that split. The reason they split is particularly with some of your better tasting cherry tomatoes. Like for me, the Sun Gold is the king of all cherry tomatoes. The downside to growing Sun Gold is that they have very, very, very thin skin, okay? And they split. They split easily. So what happens with a cherry tomato is that once it has grown, it's not going to get any bigger. Okay, so it grows to its full size before it matures and ripens. Okay, so by the time it's red, it's not going to get any bigger. So when you have a big influx of water, a really heavy rain, that is going to go up through the roots, it's going to get into the fruit, and then it has nowhere to go. And the thinner the skin, the more likely it is to burst, because it just has nowhere else to go. So that's what happens. That's why they split. So if you're expecting a very heavy rain, like we had the other day, you'd want to pick as many of your tomatoes as you can, and then let them ripen on the, in a bag. Speaking of that, if you want your tomatoes to ripen at the end of the season and it's starting to get cold, you need to pick them, but you've got a lot of just barely ripening tomatoes, put them in a paper bag with a banana, and the ethylene of the banana will help the tomatoes ripen.
The banana.
Banana.
I was told or read someplace an apple.
An apple.
No?
I think you can use an apple too. I think a banana will help you better.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got some disease here. Okay. So we've got a couple of types of disease that really affect tomatoes. You've got early blight, late blight. You've got Anthrinos, the same thing that affects the beans. You've got a septoria disease, you've got blossom end rot. These are kind of the most obvious problems that you can have with your tomatoes. Blossom end rot is a lack of calcium. It doesn't usually mean that there's not enough calcium in your soil. It often means that the calcium is being blocked from being absorbed. That can happen from water. So again, inconsistent watering is a really obvious usual suspect for blossom end rot. It usually means that it's just hasn't been consistent, either from heavy rain or overwatering, which I think you said that you're maybe guilty of. The other thing is, it's very important for your stems to be supported. We build these extra tall cages, especially for our cherry tomatoes, which will grow to 9 feet tall. So we like the tall cage. It keeps the limbs supported so they're not breaking with the fruit that gets really heavy, and it makes them really easy to pick because there's nice big openings. The commercial cages that you often see end about here, and then you've got all this growth up here, and it's just kind of, falling over. So we really like the tall cage there. The other thing is we want to take off these branches that are having a problem, right? What that's going to do is it's going to increase the airflow around the plant, which is so important, especially when there's a lot of water in the air, right? You want as much airflow in there as you can get to keep your plants really healthy. So a lot of times our cherry tomatoes will be huge up here and pretty barren down here, which is fine because you've got usually all your other plants around it that need that space. So that works really well.
Do you also pick off what I call suckers, like the stuff that's in there? You pick that off?
Absolutely. So for me, that's kind of a debatable, right? So there are so many different ways to take care of your garden. I'm telling you what we do at Fresh Start and what we use as our chosen methods. On a determinate plant, we will not take them off. So that would be your big heirloom tomatoes. We don't take them off. With a cherry tomato, we do take them off.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
And what that means, removing the suckers, means you want to take this guy off here, right in between the branch and the stem. Anything growing there, you just pick that off like that, and it redirects the energy up the stem. If you don't take these off, you tend to get lots of stems and the energy of the plant going in all kinds of different directions, rather than being focused on the main stem, and that makes that really tall and healthy. The other thing this year is we've got some flowers right here. So obviously a flower is going to turn into a fruit, right? But on these tomatoes, there's not enough time before the end of the season for that to come to fruition. I'm going to want to take that off. I don't want that to grow, because if this is growing, then the plant is taking energy away from bringing the other fruit to a harvestable state. So we're going to take that off. This is called topping off. Anytime you take off the growth point of a plant, so this is what a growth point looks like. So this whole branch right here, it's got some fruit forming and got some leaves. You want to take that off altogether, just like that. Okay, that's where the plant is going to grow. So if we take this off, it means the energy is going to go back into ripening this fruit, rather than trying to grow a fruit that's never going to be big enough, and just won't have enough time before the end of the season. Okay?
Okay.
So that's a little bit about some of the common questions that folks have about their gardens. Thank you for your great questions. You know, this season has certainly been a good learning experience for a lot of people. We've been in a drought situation since about 2002, a continuous drought. So it's very odd to have this much water. And there's a lot to learn about that and how that affects plants. So hopefully this has been helpful. And if you have any questions at all, you can call us at 617-803-3921, Fresh Start Food Gardens, or visit us online. Thanks.
Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you. Thanks.